Welcome back to the Dirt Head Shed. We're gonna start mixing it up a little bit, and I'm adding bikes into the mix. Mix? Too many mixes. So here's the deal. Like a lot of us car guys and kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s, I grew up riding bicycles. I was like super into BMX. I raced as a little kid, raced in Oregon from when I was like 8 years old until I was like 12. And then I had to take a couple of years off because I actually broke my skull, which wasn't bad, but that kind of explains a few things about why I am the way I am. And then I got back into BMX and dirt jumping in the early 90s in Southern California. Like the best time for like this dirt jumping and street riding scene. I wasn't ever that good, but I embraced it. I rode hard. It was just a good time. In my teenage years, I rode mountain bikes pretty hard, but I couldn't afford a good bike at the time. So I was on like an old Costco bike and having fun with that. Then I got my license and I got into cars, and that was like 16 years old, and biking just like shut off. It was like I just turned the faucet off and it was like no more biking. It was all about trying to build a big stereo system and cut springs and get my car as low as I could and all that stuff. So I've always kept bicycles around. I've always ridden, but I haven't really ridden hard or consistently since I was like in my teenage years. I think I went back when I was 18 and I rode mountain bikes pretty good, but that was kind of it. And now I'm like 45 years old, so it's definitely time to obsess over bikes again and start riding really hard. So check out what I've got and what we're going to be doing. About a month ago, I got back on my Haro here, full suspension shift 27 plus. This is a 2018 bike that I got when it was actually it was a test ride bike for Haro, and my buddy was working there and he was like, "Oh yeah, I can score you this test bike." And what did they, it was a display or test, I don't know, but it was through Haro, but it had been ridden a bunch, so I got it cheap. So got that bike a couple of years ago. I've been riding it a bunch over the last month and lost like 14 pounds, and I'm eating healthier. I'm not drinking as much, so things are good as far as how progression's going. But I'm totally obsessing on bicycle videos, bicycle specs, what I think I want, what I can afford or can't afford, and I'm like, I don't even watch YouTube videos, but I cannot stop watching YouTube bicycle videos. Like mountain bike videos are like, I'm up till like 10:45 every night, like sitting there on my phone watching bike videos. It's ridiculous. So fast forward, after a month of watching bike videos and thinking about what I want, I've been using this bike as sort of a crutch more than anything else, thinking that I'm like, the bike just isn't right. It doesn't feel right. I actually blew out the rear shock on this thing a couple of years ago because I was always like locking out the shock and trying to ride this thing as a hardtail. I've always kind of felt like hardtail bikes were what I grew up with. Riding BMX, when I was riding mountain bikes back in the 90s, they were all hardtail. The first couple of years they were rigid. I didn't even have suspension forks in the front. So it was, in my mind, I've been wanting a hardtail mountain bike, and that's where this Trek Roscoe comes in. I just picked this up about a week and a half ago from a local bike shop, and it is super cool. So I'm kind of at that stage where it's like the bike is good and I'm getting better, and it's time to just start riding and seeing where this progresses. So let's talk a little bit about the bikes and then we'll go out for a ride. This was probably, I think I looked it up, and the MSRP was like 2,800 bucks on this bike. And I think I picked it up for 1,300 bucks as a used bike. And it actually has a lot of really good like new style components on it. It's got boost spacing, it's got a 1x10 drivetrain, it's got a clutch on the derailleur, it's got pretty good parts, rock shock, air suspension, dropper post, 27.5 plus wheels and tires, tapered head tube. Like, this thing's pretty legit. Back in 18, 19, this was probably one of the top dog. Maybe not. I mean, it's a Haro. It's kind of mid-level, but it's got good parts on it for the cost. So this is technically a downgrade from that bike. This bike I bought new for $1,500. The parts spec on it is a little bit lower grade than the Haro up top. It doesn't have suspension, so obviously the bikes cost a little bit less because they're less complicated. But this thing rides absolutely amazing. It's a little bit more modern, where it's got boost through axles, front and rear, slack head tube geometry, hardtails. I mean, this is a cool bike, and the price was right. So $1,500 might sound expensive to some, and it might sound ultra cheap to others. I thought it was a totally fair deal for the price. I've been out on this bike 3 or 4 times now. I've put some miles on it, and I am a firm believer right now in hardtail mountain bikes. Oh my gosh, this thing is a blast to ride. It's fast uphill, it's fast downhill, it's lightweight, and it does all the things that I want it to do. I mean, you're definitely riding the bike. You're feeling all the rocks and bumps. You can still hit stuff pretty hard though. The front shocks will take a bunch of abuse, and if you're standing up, it doesn't really matter if you got rear suspension or not, because you got legs to do that job. All right. It's time to ride this thing. I'm kind of done with truck work in my shop for the day, and I'm heading over to my buddy Cameron's house. We're gonna work on his rig for a couple hours and then hopefully go ride bikes before dark. He's got trails basically right out of his property. So we're gonna head over there. Got a little GoPro mount hooked up on the bike and should be able to at least get a few clips of how this thing's working. All right, I didn't get a chance to go ride yesterday. It ended up pouring down rain after we were getting done working on Cameron's truck. So I'm gonna go ride this morning. We've got good dirt, a little bit of moisture in the ground, and it's time to go rip. So Cameron was asking me, what's this video about? Because he's good at telling stories and videos. And I was like, well, I don't know, I just want mountain bikes on my channel. So I guess what we'll end up doing is just give you some first impressions on this bike here, and whether I like it or whether I don't. So we'll also probably get into other bikes. I mean, we'll obviously review the Haro full suspension that I have in there, talk about upgrades that I want to do on it, and see if we can kind of grow this section of the channel into doing some bike work and some bike review type stuff. So anyways, enough of that nonsense. Let's go ride, see if this thing's any good, see if I'm any good. So I'm back in the shop, and I think what happened was I'm having GoPro problems again. Check this out. Every time I mess with this GoPro, there's like something that has to go and screw up. This time I was trying to use my media mod, which is a case that the GoPro goes into, and it has like an external microphone on it. Well, once I pulled my this mic off, this is like a wireless mic. Once I pulled that off of the GoPro, the regular media mod kit wouldn't pick up any sound. So this whole ride and all its glory was kind of a waste because the audio's junk. So we're gonna kind of talk back through it and see if I can figure out how to salvage this video. So dragging out the track for the first section of this trail ride. Basically, this is sort of a long, kind of gradual uphill. It's like about 1,000 feet of climb, I think, and about 1.5 miles. So it's a pretty gradual climb. It's difficult to me because I'm still getting my lungs back, still getting my lungs and my legs back. We're basically talking about this bike, but the only thing I have to compare it to right now is this bike. The Hardtail Trek climbs amazing. It does so well on the uphills. It's quite a bit lighter than that full suspension bike, and you can really feel it. It doesn't waste any energy in compressing the suspension. I know some of the higher end full suspension bikes, they don't really compress as much as like this middle of the road. It's a 6-year-old bike now. So 6 years older in technology and sort of middle of the road. So definitely not the most cutting edge full suspension bike. And that thing is very inefficient on the climbs. Let's get back to the Trek. Climbing is awesome on this thing. The cool part about filming is I get to do everything twice if I set the camera down. Let's go ride bikes. There's a section coming up here where I have always enjoyed this like kind of fast downhill, hard left-hand corner, and then back into an uphill climb. And the full suspension bike was really enjoyable on that because it kind of like loads in and plants into the corner. I wasn't sure if the hardtail bike would do that or if it'd just try to wash out. Different feeling, but just as fast. This thing still plants that corner and does a really good job. So keep going up the hill, up the hill, up the hill, getting close to the top, and I kind of wanted to show you guys these views. I've got the camera pointed out under my armpit, but hopefully you can see past my arm and my fat belly, and you can see the rad view of the valley below. If you look down over there, you can see the river running through the valley and all that. It's super cool. We got up to the top, took a little breather, and it's time to hit some of the more difficult or challenging trails down. And this first little section is awesome. It's kind of like a little drop, a little step down, and then into a rocky section. And it was gonna be so epic, but I didn't get all the audio. But the hardtail takes these hits like nobody's business. It does just fine on it. The 12-speed drivetrain with the clutch on the derailleur doesn't like slap the chain and all that. These are all things that have been worked out over the years from when I first started mountain biking. I mean, we used to ride some clunkers. I mean, chains falling off and like the chain would just absolutely beat up the frame, and we were always like dropping chains on the front chain rings because the front derailleur was always doing weird stuff. And nowadays we got this like 1x setup where it's it's 1x means there's just one derailleur. There's only a single chainring in the front, and then there's like 12 gears in the back. So pretty rad how technology has moved forward on these. Anywho, kind of ripping down this trail, taking it a little easy, trying to get shots from a couple different perspectives. There's this one right here where I kind of like hit this roller up and over. It's kind of a little step. I don't know what the technical term is, but back in the day, they didn't all have technical terms, but kind of a little step up onto a rock section, roll it over, and then drop off this like little, probably 4-foot little ledge drop. It was fun. And then I set up the camera in like in a tree, hoping that it wouldn't fall. And I think we succeeded in that. Ride down the trail a ways and start getting out of that. Oh, there's this other rad little section before I get to the end, like 45 seconds of trail. Just a cool little slalom-y, like berm back and forth in and out of the trees coming down. Couple little jump hits here and there. Rolling into the final section is like so good. It's what it's all about. My dog is over there just absolutely freaking out with the neighbors. Rolling into this last little bit is just a super fun, just berm after berm after berm with little rollers here and there. So fast, and I just want to ride more and more and more and faster. It's so much fun, and that part doesn't seem too awful dangerous. There's no big rocks and drops and chunky stuff. Anyways, we get out of that section, come down and there's a pump track, a couple little jump sections, so I go ahead and try and run through there and look like a total loser, not jumping very well. Cool little ride back to the car. When I went out this morning, there was only 2 cars in the parking lot. When I got back, there was like 10, so pretty rad seeing people out there getting their ride on, especially on a weekday. I'm stoked to be back on this thing. Well, I'm stoked to be on this in particular. Just spent a little bit of money, bought a new bike, and I'm not regretting it at all. And it's actually making me want to do a few upgrades to this one and see if I can sort of revive this and go out and have some more fun on it. I think that's it for this Dirt Head Shed. I hope you guys are digging the new content. I'm not done with Jeeps and rock crawling and fabrication and all that by any means, but I wanted to mix it up a little bit and add some bikes into the mix, some motorcycles, and some of these other hobbies that I'm into. So I appreciate everybody's support. We had 100,000 subscribers. Stoked on that. Hopefully we get 100,000 more. This is a pretty rad journey. I appreciate all of you. I'm gonna go edit this video and then hopefully get back on my bike either tonight or tomorrow morning.